He growled, low and sharp, then lunged straight at the smug officer. The courtroom froze. Gasps echoed. But the judge didn't stop him. The dog clawed at the officer's boot, and the girl whispered, "That's where he hid it." What happened next left everyone speechless. But let's start from the beginning. The courtroom was suffocatingly quiet. 12-year-old Lily Anderson sat on the edge of the witness stand, legs barely dangling above the floor. Her knuckles were white, clenched around the leash of a towering German shepherd, Thor, who sat alert at her side. She didn't look at the judge. She didn't glance toward the jury. Her eyes were fixed on one man, the man in uniform, sitting across the room with his arms folded and a smug grin carved into his face. Officer Brent Calloway. It had been 3 months since that night, the night that shattered everything. The night Max, Lily's first dog, and Thor's brother had been shot in their living room during a so-called noise complaint. 3 months since Calloway forced open their front door without a warrant, muttered something about a barking dog, and pulled the trigger without hesitation. Lily had watched it happen from the hallway, pressed up against the wallpaper like she could melt into it. She hadn't screamed. She hadn't cried. But something inside her had frozen that night, calcified. Something she didn't even understand until now. Her mother, Emily Anderson, sat behind her, hands trembling, eyes red-rimmed from the sleepless nights and courtroom tension. Emily had filed a civil case, not for money. God, no. But for something far more sacred to them. Truth. Because Officer Calloway had lied. He'd claimed Max attacked. He'd claimed he was defending himself. But Max had never hurt anyone. He was Lily's therapy dog, assigned after her father died in a construction accident 3 years prior. He slept beside her every night. He barked only when someone raised their voice at her mother. That night, he'd barked once. One single warning, and Calloway had silenced it with a bullet. The department had swept the incident under the rug within 48 hours. No body cam footage, no investigation. "Open and shut case," they said. But there was one problem. Lily remembered everything. When Judge Albright, a stern woman in her 60s with a permanent crease between her brows, called Lily to testify, a rustle of interest went through the room. A child witness was unusual, especially one so quiet, so composed. "Miss Anderson," the judge began gently, "you're under oath. Do you understand what that means?" Lily nodded. "Yes, Your Honor." "Would you like to make a statement now?" Lily looked down at Thor, who stared back at her like he understood every word. He was wearing a vest marked "support animal," but it was more than that. He was her shadow, her shield, her last link to Max. What happened next took just seconds, but it rippled through the room like a wave. Lily bent down and whispered something inaudible into Thor's ear. The dog's ears twitched. His tail stiffened. And then, in a flash of muscle and purpose, he bolted. There was no warning bark, no growl, just the sharp sound of nails on wood and the panicked shout from Officer Calloway's attorney. "Objection, Your Honor! Control that animal!" But Judge Albright didn't move, not even a flinch. Her eyes, oddly focused, watched Thor with something between curiosity and calculation. Calloway stood up, startled, knocking over his chair as the dog charged straight toward him. But Thor didn't attack. He didn't bite. He didn't even growl. He stopped precisely 2 feet in front of Calloway and began barking. Once, twice, 3 times. Sharp, deliberate, controlled. Then he sat and raised one large paw, not to shake, but to dig, right at Calloway's polished left boot. "Miss Anderson," the judge said slowly, "can you explain what your dog is doing?" Lily stood tall, her voice clear for the first time that day. "That's where he hid the flash drive," she said. The courtroom exploded. Murmurs turned to gasps. Someone dropped a pen. Emily covered her mouth. Calloway's face turned an unnatural shade of gray. "No further questions," Lily added, almost in a whisper. Security rushed in. The judge stood, her gavel striking the desk 3 times. "Silence in the court." But the energy couldn't be contained. Reporters in the gallery were already whispering to each other. Calloway's attorney stood motionless, blinking as if he'd just seen a ghost. Judge Albright gestured toward the bailiff. "Remove Officer Calloway's boot, now." The courtroom held its breath. Calloway protested. "This is absurd. That girl's manipulating the court." "Remove the boot," the judge repeated. It took less than a minute. Inside the boot, wrapped in plastic, was a tiny black USB flash drive, exactly where Lily said it would be. The judge held it up with gloved hands. "We'll have this examined immediately." Lily turned and walked back to her mother. Emily knelt to hold her daughter, burying her face in her shoulder. Thor followed and lay at their feet, tail thumping once against the floor. Calloway didn't say another word. The courtroom was adjourned for a recess, but no one moved. The energy in the air buzzed like static before a storm. The flash drive had been sealed in an evidence bag and taken to the forensics lab down the hall. Judge Albright instructed all parties to remain in the building, not out of legal formality, out of urgency. Something big had just cracked open, and everyone knew it. But Lily, she just sat still. She held Thor's leash loosely now. Her hand trembled just slightly, but her face stayed calm. Too calm for a 12-year-old. Emily Anderson noticed this. She wrapped her arm around her daughter on the long wooden bench and kissed her temple. "You were so brave," Emily whispered. Lily didn't answer. She stared straight ahead, eyes distant, not because she was numb, but because she was remembering. That night, the moment Max's bark turned into a yelp, then silence, and the face Officer Calloway made right after. That crooked little smile, like he'd done something righteous, or worse, like he enjoyed it. Across the room, Officer Calloway sat with his defense attorney, whispering furiously. His hands moved with sharp, frustrated gestures. His face was red now. No longer smug, but simmering with a different kind of heat. A trapped man. A predator cornered. His lawyer, a slick, sharp-jawed man named Darren Hale, stood up and stormed toward the judge's assistant. "We want the drive dismissed," he barked. "That evidence was discovered through an animal, an unqualified, non-human source. That's not admissible." The assistant didn't even blink. "That's up to the judge." Calloway stood next. "This is a witch hunt," he snarled across the courtroom. "This is harassment. That little girl trained that dog to do this. It's a setup." The murmurs began again. Lily didn't even turn her head. Emily stood this time, her voice rising like steel through the noise. "You murdered our dog. Then you lied about it. And now you're calling my daughter a liar too? You should be ashamed." Calloway laughed bitterly. "Lady, I've seen girls like your daughter. They love attention. They'd do anything for it." The bailiff moved in quickly, warning Calloway to stay seated. But the damage had been done. Lily flinched, not because she believed him, but because for a split second, she saw the courtroom hesitate. A moment of doubt. That was the real power Calloway carried, not his badge, not his gun. It was the doubt he planted in people. Quiet, poisonous. Judge Albright returned 20 minutes later. When she entered, silence returned like a wave crashing onto a beach and dragging everything with it. She took her seat, her expression unreadable. "The contents of the flash drive are being examined," she began. "In the meantime, we will proceed with testimony and witness cross-examinations. Officer Calloway, take the stand. Lily's breath caught. Her heart pounded in her ears. Calloway walked slowly to the witness box, like a man preparing for battle. He swore the oath with a smirk. He adjusted his collar. He even winked at the jury. "Mr. Calloway," Judge Albright said coolly, "you claimed under oath that you had no digital recordings from the night of March 17th. Is that correct?" "Yes, ma'am. I had no body cam footage. My unit's dash cam was malfunctioning, and the house had no surveillance footage." "And yet," she said, pausing deliberately, "a drive was just discovered inside your personal boot on which there may be relevant footage." Calloway chuckled dryly. "That's ridiculous. That girl planted it, probably with her mother's help. You're suggesting a 12-year-old girl inserted a USB device into your boot while under surveillance in a courtroom?" Calloway narrowed his eyes. "You don't know what kids are capable of these days." The courtroom reacted with stifled laughter. Not the funny kind, the kind that cuts, the kind that smells of disbelief. Darren Hale stood. "Your Honor, we strongly object to this line of questioning until the drive is authenticated." Judge Albright raised a hand. "Objection noted. Overruled for now. Continue." Emily's attorney, a gentle but tenacious woman named Rosa Diaz, approached the stand. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't have to. "Officer Calloway, were you aware that Max, the dog you shot, was a registered therapy animal for a grieving child?" Calloway rolled his eyes. "That's not relevant to the incident. The dog barked aggressively and lunged. Did you know that Max was tethered to a sofa leg at the time? That he couldn't have lunged? That's hearsay. Anyone could have moved the leash after the fact. Did you enter the home with a warrant?" "I had probable cause due to a neighbor complaint." There was no record of a call made to dispatch. Calloway didn't answer. His jaw clenched. "And when you fired, what exactly was your statement after the shot?" Rosa asked. Calloway blinked. "What do you mean?" "You made a comment, something under your breath." He paused. "I don't recall. You said, and I quote, 'That'll teach her mom to mess with me.'" The courtroom froze again. "That statement," Rosa continued, "was recorded. On the drive you tried to hide." Calloway's face crumbled just slightly. The arrogance cracked, like an ice sheet splitting at the edge. He shifted in his seat. "I never said that. You will be given a chance to review the footage shortly," Judge Albright said. "Until then, this court considers your credibility severely compromised." Calloway stared straight ahead, expression stone cold. But his leg bounced beneath the desk, a silent tell. Back at their bench, Lily leaned against her mother. "Is it really happening?" she whispered. "Will they finally see what he did?" Emily nodded, squeezing her hand. "They're starting to." But deep down, both of them knew. This wasn't over. Not yet. Because the truth had claws, and it was about to tear open everything. The courtroom was darker now, or at least it felt that way. Rain had started outside, and gray light filtered through the tall windows like smoke. The murmurs had died down. The crowd leaned forward as the bailiff returned with a sealed evidence bag, holding the now legendary flash drive. His gloved hands moved with care as he handed it to the technician near the bench. Judge Albright adjusted her glasses and addressed the room. "The court will now view the footage found in Officer Calloway's possession. All present are to remain silent. This material is critical to the case." Lily gripped Thor's fur. Emily held her breath. The monitor flickered to life. At first, nothing. A hallway. Grainy, night vision-like static. The angle was odd. From below, slightly tilted. Then, movement. A door opening. Footsteps. Heavy, deliberate boots stepping into view. Calloway. He wasn't shouting. He wasn't warning. He moved through the house like he owned it. Confident, methodical. Max's bark echoed once in the distance, and then, bang! The sound was deafening in the silence of the courtroom. Some people flinched. Lily didn't. She had heard that sound before in her nightmares. Calloway lowered the gun slowly. And then he spoke. "That'll teach her mom to mess with me." Gasps erupted. A juror dropped her pen. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." Even the court reporter stopped typing for a beat. Judge Albright froze, her lips pressed into a grim, bloodless line. Calloway's attorney stood abruptly. "Your Honor, we'd like to... This evidence was obtained without a warrant." "Sit down," Albright snapped. Her voice was like a gavel itself. The video continued. Calloway moved through the house, stepping over Max's lifeless body. He opened drawers in the kitchen. He picked up papers, scanned them, and put them back. At one point, he stopped in front of a family photo on the shelf and muttered something inaudible. Then the screen went black. That was it. No attacks, no barking frenzy, no danger. Just a man with a badge, a gun, and a grudge. Judge Albright turned to the jury. "You will disregard any previous testimony in which the defendant claimed self-defense. The footage clearly contradicts his account." Calloway stood up suddenly. "That video was edited. It's fake. They planted it." The bailiff stepped forward, hand on his taser. "No one planted anything," Rosa Diaz said coldly from across the room. "You did this, and you tried to bury it." "You don't know what it's like," Calloway snapped, eyes wild now. "You pull enough long shifts, people spit in your face, lie to you. This woman, she filed complaints against me last year. She humiliated me. That dog was just a message." The room went still. The subtext became text. This wasn't a mistake. This was revenge. Rosa didn't flinch. "So you used your badge to terrorize a grieving family. You murdered a registered therapy dog in front of a child, and then you tried to erase the evidence." Calloway looked around as if realizing for the first time that he was alone. No one met his eyes. Even his attorney took a step back. "Mr. Calloway," Judge Albright said, her voice low and deliberate, "you are hereby placed under arrest for perjury, destruction of evidence, unlawful entry, and animal cruelty. You will be taken into custody immediately." Calloway started to protest, but the bailiff was already behind him, securing cuffs around his wrists. As they led him out, he turned his head toward Lily and sneered, "You think this changes anything, kid?" Lily stood. She looked him straight in the eye. "No," she said. "I know it does." And for the first time, Calloway said nothing. Back on the bench, Emily broke down in quiet tears. Not from sadness, from the unbearable release of 3 months of fear, doubt, and helpless rage. She turned to her daughter and wrapped her arms around her. "You did it," she whispered. "You really did it." Thor nudged Lily's leg with his nose, then sat back down beside her like nothing had happened, like he hadn't just helped bring a corrupt officer to justice. Judge Albright cleared her throat. "There will be no further need for cross-examinations. I believe the evidence speaks louder than words. The jury will be dismissed. This case will proceed directly to sentencing." She looked down at Lily. "And Miss Anderson, you reminded this courtroom what justice really looks like. Not in anger, not in fear, but in truth." Lily didn't know what to say, so she just whispered, "Thank you." Later that afternoon, as the media crowded the steps outside the courthouse, microphones angled and flashbulbs popped, Emily held tightly to her daughter's hand. "Do you want to talk to them?" she asked. Lily shook her head. "I said what I needed to say." They moved quietly through the crowd. People stepped aside for them, not with pity but with respect. And just before they reached the car, a woman stepped forward from the back of the crowd. Her voice trembled. My son, he was hurt by an officer too, but no one believed him. I just wanted to say thank you for doing what we couldn't." Lily didn't answer. She didn't need to. She knelt down, hugged Thor, and kissed him on the top of his head. The dog who listened, the dog who remembered, the dog who helped her find her voice when no one else would. 2 weeks had passed. And yet, the silence in the Anderson home still felt strange. Not the kind of silence born from fear, but the kind that came after a long, exhausting storm. The kind that settles like dust in a room no one dared clean until the truth had aired out every corner. The trial was over. Brent Calloway had pled guilty to all charges after being shown additional evidence recovered from his personal locker. More flash drives, threatening notes, and even a small collection of trophies from past intimidation cases. The DA had opened a wider internal investigation, and 2 other officers were now under scrutiny. But none of that mattered to Lily, because Max was still gone. No sentence could bring him back. No verdict could erase the night she watched him fall. But now, when she closed her eyes, she didn't just see the shot. She saw Thor standing between her and the monster who wore a badge. She saw a courtroom erupt in truth. She saw people believe her, and that meant something. On a bright spring morning, Lily stood in the town square, gripping a small folded piece of paper. A small podium had been set up in front of City Hall, surrounded by folding chairs and flapping banners. The mayor was there, several local reporters, families with children, and at the center, a bronze plaque newly unveiled. At the top it read, "In honor of Max, loyal companion, silent hero. Justice begins with truth." Below it was a smaller inscription. "Because even when you can't speak, someone will listen." Lily was the last to speak. She stepped up to the mic in her simple blue dress, her voice still soft, but firm now, certain. "Max was my best friend. He was also the one who helped me sleep again after my dad died. He was the one who barked when someone shouted at my mom, and the one who licked my hands when I cried in my room." She paused. "And he died doing what he always did, protecting us." The crowd was silent, except for the sound of a woman sniffling in the back. Lily looked up from her paper. "But this isn't just about Max. This is about every voice that gets ignored, every truth that's covered up, and everyone who's told they're too small, too young, or too weak to matter." Her gaze moved over the crowd, finding a few older faces, people her grandmother's age, standing straight and proud. She knew this wasn't just her fight. It was something bigger, something older. "I didn't do this alone," she continued. "My mom believed me when no one else would. Thor stood beside me, and Judge Albright listened." She took a breath. "Now I want to make sure no one feels alone again. That's why we're starting the Brave Voices Fund, to help families who've been silenced, ignored, or scared to speak up. Because I know how that feels, and I know what it takes to push through it." Applause broke like a wave. Emily stepped forward and hugged her daughter. Reporters snapped photos. Thor, now wearing a polished honorary K9 medallion on his vest, wagged his tail as a little boy approached to pet him. "He's like a superhero," the boy whispered to his mom. Lily smiled. "He kinda is," she said. That evening, back home, the air was warm, the windows open. Lily sat at the kitchen table, drawing something in her notebook while Thor rested beside her chair. Emily was cleaning dishes when the phone rang. It was Judge Albright. She didn't talk long, just long enough to say she was nominating Lily for the Civic Courage Award, a rare honor given by the state for extraordinary bravery. "She may be small," the judge said, but what she did was monumental. Emily hung up and walked back to the table. Lily looked up. Was it about the case? Her mom shook her head. No, baby. It was about you. Lily blinked. Me? Emily nodded, her voice trembling. You changed things. For our town. For other families. For kids who didn't think anyone would believe them. Lily looked down at Thor. Then we did good, she whispered. That night, as the moonlight spilled through her bedroom window, Lily curled up under her covers. Thor hopped up beside her, resting his head gently on her stomach. She closed her eyes, and for the first time in months, maybe longer, she slept without waking up from the memory of a gunshot. No more courtroom lights in her dreams, no more uniforms that made her skin crawl, only Max, running beside Thor in the park like they used to, barking happily, whole again. A month later, a video of Lily's courtroom moment went viral. Not just the part where she pointed at Calloway, or when Thor scratched at his boot, but the whisper, the quiet moment that started everything. It was picked up by news outlets, shared in schools, shown in seminars on justice and accountability. Comments flooded in. This girl is braver than most adults I know. A 12-year-old reminded the world what justice should look like. All it took was a whisper. And one pinned comment read, "Never underestimate a girl with a dog who listens. Sometimes the truth barks louder than any voice ever could, and when it does, even the loudest liars fall silent."